Now, this video is what I'm going to call junk food. Junk food, candy, being overstimulated with things that don't add substance to your life. So when we're talking about junk food, when I'm talking about junk food, this concept is just basically a woman who gets overstimulated with things that are not masculine and dominant from a man, right? Now, unless you want to take the role of being masculine and dominant yourself, which means that you're going to have leadership skills, right? Which means that you are going to be attracted to that femininity, which means that you're going to be attracted to that submissiveness, which means that you aren't going to feel like you want to deal with other people unless he's cool with that, right? Unless you have the ability to set his expectations and be upfront and know how to reward him with sex. Unless you want to be in a position where you're the primary giver of pleasure and you don't mind if he nuts fast a good bit of the time. If you know how to teach him whatever you need to be sexually satisfied and he has the equipment and the capability of doing that, if that's not the case, then this video applies to you, right? So before any women are talking about, well, no, these are the things that I like. No, if those are the things you like and you don't have the ability to do the things that I just listed, then this video applies to you. So junk food. Junk food is basically when a woman starts becoming overstimulated from the attention and the energies that she gets from simps. That's when a woman is in a position to where she gets into a know your worth mentality, right? Now, that know your worth mentality is good. It's good to know your worth. It's good to love yourself, right? But is your self-love teaching you to be more masculine and dominant, or is your self-love helping you be more feminine and submissive? That's what you need to understand. If boosting your confidence, boosting your self-love, boosting yourself up, your man validating you, your man giving you emotional validation, social validation, commitment, time, attention, energy, if those are the things that you desire, right? Because you spent time with the simp, or you have somebody who's in your ear, whether it's friends or family, or, platonic friends who really want to fuck. There's some guys like that. There's some women who are masculine and dominant, but they're unsatisfied in their sex life and they don't respect their man, but they want to give you advice about how they should do things. Or women who are with a man who they feel that way about, but they're in their social programming when they talk to you. So they try to push this narrative of things that don't really go on in their relationship, right? Sometimes people are just talking just to talk. Those people will convince you that you should know your worth by wanting a man who is not going to be masculine and dominant. And then you're going to be unsatisfied and frustrated in your relationship, requiring more and more things because you need to feel like you're compensated for giving him your body. You need to feel like you're compensated for being in a relationship with him. You feel like being in a relationship is something to where it becomes his responsibility to do certain things. Now, if he takes upon that responsibility himself, that's one thing. But if he takes on that responsibility from a perspective of you not being feminine and submissive with him already, right? It's not that if a man is masculine and dominant, or if a man is masculine and dominant, you'll be feminine and submissive with him, or he's going to walk away or you're going to walk away. But what you have to understand is this. If your mindset is that I will follow if he leads properly, that's true. But understand that I know what you mean by that. What you mean by that is if that man validates your emotions, if that man takes the time and the attention and the energy to validate you on a consistent basis, make you feel good about yourself, and then say every single word and thought and idea that comes out of your mouth is something that is valid and should be acted on, then what you're really saying is that you want to be the leader. And if a man allows you to lead, then you'll follow him. That's bullshit. If that man goes in whatever direction he's going in and you want to follow him, you'll follow him if you're attracted to him and you respect him as a man. If you desire his leadership, you'll follow him. See, the recipe for submissiveness is good dick and guidance. That's what it is. That means you have to desire his dick and respect him as a man, respect his leadership and his guidance. And sometimes women get overstimulated with what I call junk food. So like, let's say you go through a period of your life where maybe you're a Topanga, or you're a no-limit soldier, or you're a sage burner, whatever it is. And you go through a period of your life where you're separating sex from emotions in a way to where you become transactional about sexuality, right? So maybe you have a gentleman gigolo complex where you're either a Topanga or a sage burner. You're either a Topanga or a no-limit soldier. And within that mindset, what you'll do is you will, if you're a no-limit soldier, you'll just fuck guys, right? If you're attracted to him and they are offering you a relationship up front, then you'll just assume he's a fuckboy. You don't know the difference between a fuckboy and a masculine dominant man. So if you're attracted to him, you might have sex with him, but then you're gonna, not be consistent. You're gonna play games. If he tries to link up with you, you're not going to what's it called? You're going to try to emotionally distance yourself from a man so that you can have sex with him on a semi-consistent basis. And then you're only going to want to do it on your own time and when you feel like doing it. And if he starts to expect that that's going to be something that happens on a consistent basis, you start pulling back, or you start feeling like he's playing games with you or something like that, right? But what you got to understand is sexual integration is a process. And that process starts with your body and it starts with your mind. Before it goes into that space of him validating your emotions, he first has to get to that place where he could see if you can be feminine and submissive with him on a basis of desiring his dick and desiring his guidance, liking the way that he sets expectations and follows through with the things he says. If you're making that difficult for him, then he's just going to leave you in the only sex position, right? You're just going to be nothing but a fuck buddy. You're not going to get beyond that with the man who's masculine and dominant, and some men aren't even going to deal with you on that level. So what you have to understand about junk food is that when you go through that period of your life where you're going on maybe just your whole phase and you're saying, okay, I'm not going to take any of these guys serious, that you can get overstimulated during that time dealing with guys who are playing with your emotions and having sex with you. So they mix sex and emotions with you without it being something that's a good situation for you. And when that particular type of situation occurs, then you find yourself in a position to where you're sexually overstimulated. The ups and downs of a relationship, they overstimulate you, right? Because you're dealing with that emotional roller coaster in a way that isn't based on a man being honest with you and setting your expectations. A man can be honest with you and give you that emotional roller coaster, but if a man is honest with you and gives you that emotional roller coaster, you have to be feminine and submissive enough to receive that sword, right? It means if he tell you he don't like something, he don't like something. You feel that cut, that's the lows, right? The lows are the correction, and the highs are when you come back behind with the oil, right? Because sometimes you're going to have to cut a little bit. And if you feel like that's just abuse, and a man definitely can be abusive, but if a man's correcting you or he's giving you an opportunity to experience his masculine dominance, and then you take that as feeling hurt and feeling distraught and feeling upset about it in a way to where you feel like that man is wrong, right? Then something that can happen along this way is that you'll start feeling entitled to emotional validation. And oftentimes when a woman's going through those periods of her life where she has the gigolo, the fuck boy, right? The feminine dominant man, and then she has the masculine submissive man, or the feminine submissive man. And then the masculine submissive man would be a man who's willing to be transactional to get what he wants out of the situation, right? So he might try to pay for things. He might try to reward her for things that she hasn't actually been rewarded for, things she didn't actually do. And he will put her on a pedestal and emotionally validate her and socially validate her, or try to be in a relationship so he has access to her body to try to keep her from fucking other people. And he will do things that aren't logical, that aren't practical, that aren't established in his program. And sometimes what women do is they will take the best dick that they can get from the feminine dominant, right? Which is oftentimes, it may not even really be based on the man's sex level, but sometimes it is. But it's really a combination of that sex level and the emotional roller coaster that creates sexual transmutation that makes the experience feel so much better than it actually is. When you cut off your emotions, you realize you don't really feel the same way about that man as you thought you did sexually, right? But at the same time as a woman has that gigolo, she has that nice guy. She has those simps. She has those guys who are trying to trade love for sex. They're trying to shower her with attention and emotions and gifts and money and all these things. And when a woman is in that position where she's having those types of experience, oftentimes she expects to have the best of the masculine submissive and the best of the feminine dominant without being feminine and submissive. Or she expects them to come at the same time in the same order and up front. And most men who do that are just another brand of masculine submissive or another brand of feminine dominant, regardless of how much money he has. Most of the time, that's what it is. When you get emotionally overstimulated due to the emotional validation that you're getting from men, it puts you into a stance where it starts to grow what your requirements and your capacity is, to where you're going to be unable to be feminine and submissive with a man who's not doing too much, unless you're in a position where you're going to be in internal conflict with yourself and be complaining about the relationship to other people behind the scenes. And then you're going to be feeling like maybe you could get more if you're listening to outside voices while you're dealing with that particular man. Then you're going to miss the attention that you were getting. Then you're probably going to be an attention whore online. Or then you're going to be talking to your exes. Then you're going to be having male friends. Then you're going to be doing things trying to get the extra validation because you're not secure enough within yourself. And you've been overstimulated with junk food to where now you have a dependency on things that don't actually give you substance. See, the good D and the guidance, that's the meat and potatoes right there. That is the things that give you substance. Those are the things that strengthen your sexual polarity. Those are the things that help you get along better and function better on a level of polarity, which is integratable and sustainable, right? But when you get overstimulated with that, with the candy, right, with the junk food, then it puts you into a position to where you get hooked on trying to have things that aren't actually going to benefit your relationship, that are going to cause you to lose respect, lose attraction, lose desire for that man. And after you begin to lose those things, you're going to put yourself into a position where you're going to try to use the Delilah effect and make requirements and get upset and then feel like he just doesn't understand you. You're going to start feeling entitled to emotional validation in times where you're wrong. You're going to be feeling entitled to feeling like he hears you and understands you and isn't upset with you in times where you did something worth being upset towards. But instead of listening to what he says and how he interprets the situation, you're going to have your social programming is going to be risen up. Your social programming is something that pushes this idea of symmetry in relationships instead of polarity. So you're going to want to feel like, well, if I'm doing this, you should do this. Like an example I gave in my video, Good D and Guidance. There's no substitute for good D and guidance. There's going to be moments to where he's going to say, stop. And then you're going to be like, why? Or it's going to be situations where the example I gave was this. Let's say you're walking down the street. He says, stop. If he just puts his arm in the way, you're going to stop, right? If he tells you to stop, are you going to take a couple more steps, right? You know, there's different things. And if you feel like, well, if I'm stopping, then you got to stop too, right? And you start getting reactive, and then you start trying to make things a situation of equals, try to make things a situation of symmetry instead of following his lead. You put yourself into a perspective to where you start feeling like, well, if I, you know, you're not going to be like, if he jumps, you're going to say how high or where to, or you're not just going to jump and then ask if it wasn't adequate. What you're going to do is say, well, if I jump, then you should jump too. You should crawl. Or if it gets bad enough, he'll be like, nigga, I'm not about to jump. Who are you? You're not my dad.
The reason that man said stop, the reason that man said jump, was because there was a specific hurdle that needed to be stopped. Let's say a car was coming, right? Which could be you playing with fire if you just go through psychological reactions. So it could be situations to where you are doing things, or you are in the trajectory of doing things that could negatively affect your relationship, right? Or things that could hurt you, or things that could hurt him, or things that would lead to you taking a stance of masculinity or dominance against your man in a way that will arouse either him walking away or him getting aggressive with you. And when you understand that that's what's going on, you got to know that there's a reason why it's good D and guidance. When you are feminine and submissive with the man, you're not focused on being logical as much as you're focusing on him. You're focusing on following. You're focusing on his leadership, his instructions, his guidance. And when you take a stance, a masculine stance, while you still have that baseline level of femininity within you, then oftentimes what you feel is logical is going to come from an emotional place that is not going to actually be suitable or sustainable, and is not actually going to be something that helps sustain what your situation is. It's going to be something that comes from a place of psychological reactance that leads to further sexual disintegration, further sexual polarity erosion, and something that is going to further sabotage the relationship. So when you're in that position, sometimes a man's instructions are like Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. They're not always something that is about him just trying to control you and make you do stuff you don't want to do. Sometimes it's simply about understanding that there are smaller muscle groups that have to be worked. It's just like if you're, a boxer in a gym, or just like if you're trying to go on a particular journey, there are things that have to be learned. There are certain skills that have to be there. And the sooner that you have those psychologically reactive moments, the sooner it's a situation where a man who's masculine and dominant says, okay, she doesn't know how to follow instructions, she doesn't know how to follow my lead. These things are foundational blocks, right? So when he puts his arm in the way, it could simply be saying, hey, listen, there's a car coming, you don't see it, you're focused on me right now, right? So you don't see the car. Because you're focused on me, you don't see the car, so let me put my arm in the way, right? Or let me say stop if he's not close enough to you at that moment to put his arm in the way. Or he may say jump because there's a snake on the ground. And if you need him to explain every single thing about that ahead of time because you're overstimulated with emotional validation and him explaining every single thing to you ahead of time, then you're going to be in a position to where it's going to slow down your ability to move forward without jumping over certain hurdles when it comes to having a successful relationship.
Right? So what you got to understand is you got to keep that feeling in that relationship to where your baby girl, he's daddy, right? If you get to a place where you don't feel comfortable calling that man daddy, and some people, they don't do that, but that's what I'm talking about here. Whatever your version of that is, if you don't feel comfortable calling that man big daddy, and you felt that way before, then you understand that, okay, cool, you're starting to go through sexual polarity erosion. If things that he used to do that you were attracted to, you no longer like, okay, you're going through sexual polarity erosion. And once you start going through that, then it's just a matter of time before that relationship goes downhill. And either he's going to walk away, you're going to walk away, or the situation is going to get toxic and abusive. Now, those aren't the only options. You can correct your sexual polarity erosion if he has proper leadership, or if you have the skills and understanding of what it means to fix the sexual polarity in your relationship. If it starts getting off, you need to take a step back, think about the times that were the best before you say things that you'll regret, things that indicate that y'all shouldn't be together, before you're just trying to be quote unquote honest and express yourself about things you don't feel all the time and that would be deal breakers for him when it comes to your relationship, right? You have to understand that, because then the man's not going to be in a position with you where he wants to continue to invest in you, to continue to make plans, to continue to include you in what he wants to do in the future, right? So these are just some things to understand, right? A lot of women, they get hooked on junk food. That's being emotionally validated by simps. What you have to understand as a woman is this: your desire for validation is never going to go away. You desire it. You might shut it down and then try to self-soothe, and you need to have a certain level of self-soothing within yourself so that you don't become an intention whore, right? But at the same time, the desire of validation is not something that's really meant to spread across a bunch of people unless your job is to be like an artist or something, or your job is to put yourself in a position where multiple people like you. And even if that's your job, then you still have to be able to compartmentalize that from your relationship and be in a relationship where you have an intrinsic desire to be validated by that man. See, your desire for validation can be either spread out or it can be honed in. So if you're a people pleaser, it's going to kill your ability to be feminine and submissive, because you're going to drain yourself. You're going to wear yourself thin with doing so many things for so many other people instead of actually being able to feed into your relationship and help that grow, to water and nurture that. And if you're not watering and nurturing that, then it's going to die just like a plant in the house. So these are just some things to understand. A lot of women, they get hooked on junk food. Oftentimes, a lot of these healthy relationship posts, you know, where people push these ideas of trying to be against codependency and trying to be against, you know, all these different things, trying to give the impression that in a relationship, your needs are not important, their needs are not important, everything's about self-love, everything's about self-soothing. No, you need to have a certain level of self-soothing, but you have to leave a certain level of space for desiring the validation of your man. Because remember, that desire will never go away for a man. It won't. Desire for a man's approval will never go away. That's why a lot of women, they go around dressing a certain way and saying, well, I'm not doing this for me, and I'm doing this for me. No, you're doing it for the attention of several men who you don't care about. So it's not one specific man, it's just several. And then sometimes it gets down to women as well. And when it gets to that place, if that's more important to you than the opinion of your man, if pleasing other people is more important to you than pleasing your man, then you're going to give him the scraps and the crumbs of you at the end of the day. You're going to start being like, well, I'm tired, right? You're going to start feeling worn out and stressed out. And if he's a man who stands his ground about what his needs are, If he's a man who puts what he needs as a priority, then you're going to start feeling worn out. You're going to start feeling depleted and drained, and your cup is going to get low because you don't desire his validation enough, and you aren't attracted enough, and you don't respect him enough for doing those things for him that satisfy him. And having sex with him gives you intrinsic pleasure, intrinsic motivation, intrinsic reward. And also respecting him as a man is not something that you feel will lead you down the wrong path. You respect him enough and know that he cares for you enough to say, okay, well, he has good character, so whatever plan he has for us is going to be one that benefits us. I trust you. See, trust and respecting a man is more than just saying that you believe that he's a good person or that his intentions are good. No. If you don't respect his mindset, you don't respect his leadership, his guidance, then you don't respect him as a man, right? Because respecting a man as a man is being willing to follow his lead. And a lot of women don't understand that. So when you're in that particular type of position, you start getting reactant, then he's not going to trust you as well, because he doesn't know if he can depend on you to make the certain moves that need to be made when they need to be made. You might wonder why the sex is slowing down. Well, if you start feeling like, well, you haven't taken me out in like 2-3 weeks, a month, you don't know if the money low and he's doing what he got to do to keep shit up. You don't know if there's certain things he's working on, and you don't know if he's just trying to build up your desire level at home and just see where you at right now. But once you start feeling that way, you're like, well, if he took me out more, I want to have sex. That's transactional. You're addicted to junk food, right? Not the actual substance of his masculinity, not his presence, not his good deed and his guidance. And a lot of this goes heavily along with the 9-7 dichotomy. A lot of women, they try to judge how a man feels about them based off of how men who they had a 6th level of attraction, 6th level of sexual attraction felt about him. Or a man with a 7th level of sexual attraction felt about him and acted towards them, right? Because the man who's on a 6th level of sexual attraction who actually puts up with you is going to be a man who's putting in a lot of work, a lot of dates, a lot of energy, a lot of effort to have sex with you. But oftentimes, after he gets it enough, he's going to be bored with it unless you're playing games with it. And then he's going to keep doing certain things. And then you're going to have to control the relationship through a man's access to you sexually. And that becomes draining for both parties. Because after you get enough validation out of the man, then it's no longer going to feel like a good enough transaction to keep giving him your body. So then you're going to raise the standard. Say, well, I got to be your girlfriend, or we got to get engaged, or I got to be your wife, or you got to take me out more. You got to do all this different stuff. Understand, sometimes a man don't want to take you out in public because when y'all alone, you're not acting right. When y'all alone, your energy is off. Why would he want to expose the insecurities in your relationship to the outside world when your energy is off? Why would he want to do that? If you don't hang on that man's arm, if you don't hang on his words, if you got a wandering eye, if you're always online trying to put yourself out there for male validation, if you're always trying to, if you'll get dressed up for work but you won't get dressed up for him, right? Then why would he want to take you out? Just so that other people could see how weak his program is. So other people can see how weak the game is. And he's also doing you a favor, because if another woman sees you having that energy with him, then she is going to desire him. And some women are going to come in and be vultures and take your man. And you don't want that to happen. And sometimes they probably should. Some of y'all don't deserve the man y'all have. There's just some real shit. Another woman probably should come in and swoop him up, because you don't appreciate shit. So what I'm saying is this: you got to understand that when you get overly emotionally validated, you get addicted to the junk food of emotional validation. You get addicted to the junk food of social validation. You get addicted to the junk food of a man being very generous with his resources. Right? When you get addicted to those things and you start desiring and feeling like you require a man who is a beta male, and when you start feeling that way, you put yourself in a tough spot. Because even if you find a man you desire enough to deal with on a sexual level, then you're going to feel like, because he's not doing this and that for you, right, that he doesn't really care about you, or he don't really like you, when you haven't done anything worth being liked. Only thing you did worth being liked was just make sure that your hair was done and you had a nice outfit on, your toes was pretty or something. That's all you did. You ain't did shit else. So if that's all you did was just not be an asshole, that's not enough for a man who's masculine and dominant, because he has other women and he values himself enough to know that in order for y'all to be in an integrated relationship that's healthy and that's successful, where the polarity is good, you're going to have to be invested yourself. I know we say that, you know, a man who's masculine and dominant, he leads. That's true. But if in any way you rejected him sexually, or if any way, right, you weren't available to him, or if in any way you weren't showing respect towards him, right, and he feels that way, and you could tell he feels that way, it's your responsibility to make up for that. If you expect him to come to you when his arms are reached out to you, trying to extend the olive branch, and then when he tries to extend the olive branch, you push him away, the man is not going to keep doing something that isn't logical, because he knows that if he's reaching out to you and that's pushing you away, then you must not want him. But you want him to work harder, right? No, you're addicted to junk food. You're addicted to emotional validation. And you need to become more secure within yourself so that you don't feel that way, so that you can have a relationship that's healthy and sustainable with a man who's masculine and dominant. So this is Brody Dharma talking about junk food. I'm out.